Jawaharlal Nehru Planetarium, as all of you know, in Bangalore. He has number of research publications. He has written number of books on varied topics and has guided number of people for their doctoral degrees. And even now, he is pursuing research with all the curiosity and inquisitiveness as a true science student. With these few remarks, I request Professor C.V. Vishweshwara to take over and give us the benefit of his vast wisdom in the form of addressing us on the topic, what Upanishads mean to me. Over to Professor C.V. Vishweshwara.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ranganath, for those very generous, exaggerated introduction. It's a great pleasure to be here and a privilege to be giving this talk. I'm giving this talk, as you can see, sitting here, because I'm told, I'm not an expert, Upanishad means sitting down, not standing up. Therefore, in the spirit of that, I'm sitting down. I wish I could be sitting with all the experts here, because I'm the student, you are the teachers. So I wish I could be sitting there with you, close to you, as the Upanishad means. But unfortunately, I don't think I can do that, can I? No. So at least I'm going to sit here and give this talk. As I said, it's really a privilege to be here and giving this talk. And first of all, I should thank my long-time friend, Mr. H.N. Suresh, Director of Bharati Vidya Bhavan, for his very warm, kind and friendly invitation to come here and give this talk. And also to Deputy Director Ashok Kumar, who has been extremely helpful in many ways. Now, during the inaugural function, Suresh made a statement that any problems, anything that goes wrong intellectually or academically, the blame will have to be attached to Dr. Ranganath. So my talk is a case in point. A couple of months ago, not years, couple of months ago, he called me up and said that I should give this talk. And I was taken aback because I told Dr. Ranganath, see, I do not know any Sanskrit. He said it didn't matter. I said, I'm not an expert on Indian philosophy. He said, it didn't matter. I said, I'm not a scholar of Upanishads. He said, it does not matter. But then suddenly it occurred to me that I was describing myself as though I was Brahman. I am not this, I am not this, I am not this. So I realized that already the spirit of Upanishads was seeping into me, Yagyavalkya, Gargi and all that. So how could I refuse to come and give this talk? So I agreed, but I told him also, in the spirit of the Upanishads, if I have anything to learn, I will sit next to you and you have to teach me. And he graciously agreed that he would do this. But you know, nowadays, when you sit next to your teacher and learn, it is done through internet. But I am not so advanced as to be using internet, so we did it over the telephone. And so here I am giving this talk. But there was always a way out of this predicament. I can always pose dramatically this question: what do Upanishads mean to me? And then say, nothing, and sit down. I'm already sitting down, but I am not going to do this, so don't be disappointed that this is the end of the talk. I'm going to talk a little bit more, whatever little I feel, I think, and I know within the context of Upanishads. Now, all of us know that the most profound influence you have occurs when you are a child. That is when the long-lasting, even if it is subconscious, the impression occurs very profound, and most of the time that is done through your parents, maybe your mother, your father. Sometimes one's father could be a businessman, politician, or a thief. Nowadays, all three are synonymous. So they have profound influence on you. But fortunately, in my case, my father happened to be a great scholar, very celebrated scholar. Some of you might have known him. Some of you might know of him. His name was C.K. Venkatramaya, and he was a scholar in all three languages, English, Kannada and Sanskrit. He wrote nearly 30 books, biographies, short stories, and 3 monumental volumes on Bhasa, Kalidasa and Bhavabhuti, and a number of plays which were extremely popular, like Mandodari, Tenali Ramakrishna, which was made into movies in both Telugu and Tamil. Telugu and won the President's Award. And one of the most important and most interesting and popular play was Nachiketa. So when I was about 10 or 12, that's all, maybe the age of Nachiketa himself, I don't know how old Nachiketa was. But anyway, I saw the play, and as you have already seen the visual impact. See, at an intellectual level you can have all the discourses and the descriptions and discussions, which is very important about Upanishads. But the visual impact can be a very different experience, emotional, spiritual, everything combined. We saw a sample of that during the dance performance of the Sridhars, which was brief. But the few lines that you see in Kathopanishad were made by my father, CKV as he was called, into a full-blown play. 3 acts play with a number of imagined characters like Nachiketa's guru, Vamadeva, his mother, his sister, and so on and so forth, the king. And I wish some of you could read it. When I sat there, it was a totally different experience, a very profound experience. Probably that's one of the best way to imbibe Kathopanishad. Of course, reading it is also extremely important. So I can even today visualize sitting there in those days. See, it starts with the asthana of Hiranyagarbha. So you could imagine, even in those days, all the tinsel, the shining things, the red, green and yellow, silver, everything would be decorated with the flowers, garlands and so on. And then Yama makes his appearance there. And Yama tells Hiranyagarbha that there was a flash of divine light, but it was not at all harmful to the eyes, but it was like Amrita Sinchana. And he felt that it was harbinging, that heralding the appearance on this earth of a Mahanubhava who would come to Yama and learn from him the Atma Jnana and propagate it so that everyone would be freed from the sins. So Hiranyagarbha smiles and asks, that means the end of your job. You will lose your job. He says, that will be the happiest day for me. But unfortunately, aspiration of Yama has not been fulfilled. He is very much in his job, and there are a lot of people who go there. I don't think he will ever lose his job. He will never be superannuated, so no retirement of Yama. So this is how it starts, and as I told you, he did that. And then the other most telling, most effective scene is when Vajashravasa gives away Nachiketa to Yama. As I told you, I don't know any Sanskrit. Please forgive me if I say things which are wrong. So thrice, in a booming voice, Vajashravasa says, Mrityuve tva dadami. I hope I said it right. Thrice in a crescendo. And as it happens, slowly the volume goes up. And the third one is there is thunder and lightning. Suddenly the stage is filled with red and green lights vibrating, and the Yamapasha descends from above. I can never forget this scene. So this is how it happened, and this is how I was really impressed by that. And today I missed this talk. I think there was one talk about the influence of Upanishads on Devudu Narsim Shastri. Devudu was a great scholar. He wrote about Mimamsa Darshana or something like that. And apparently, see, the play was written 4 years before I was born. So during that time when it was played, when I still not exist and I was not even a thought in my parents' mind probably, when the play was staged, Devudu used to play Vajashravasa. Apparently the most powerful portrayal of Vajashravasa, but unfortunately his eldest son died and Devudu could not play this role anymore, because in a way he had given his son to Yama, so he could not play. But even the person who played one Namagiri Subbrao, he did an extremely nice job of Vajashravasa. And then later also there are all sorts of subtle touches. So this talk is not about that play. So only one other thing, when Nachiketa goes to Yama, Yama comes and says, "Child, aren't you afraid of me? I am a Dandadhara." And Nachiketa smiles and said, "If your one's father is whether Dandadhara, Chakradhara, Pashadhara, or like Varuna, Nagapashadhara, why should the son be afraid of his father, his guru?" And then starts the discourse. But my father right in the beginning says, he is not going to put the discourse there. It is for people to go and read. So if we put that on a stage, I don't think it will have any effect. So it just whispers, and the whole play ends with all of them going back to Hiranyagarbha and prostrating. So when my father wrote it, he says in the preface, he wrote it on the basis of Kathopanishads and then Taittiriya Brahmana and Mahabharata and Shankara Bhashya and so on. So it was a total essence of erudition, but still great, I shouldn't say entertainment, but enlightenment in the best possible way. So this was the most indelible influence I had on my mind. And therefore, later on, let me confess, only recently I read Kathopanishad and found that it's not just Yama telling Atma, Jnana, but the way to live in this world so that you improve as you go on. And it's really a fantastic Upanishad. All of them, I'm sure, are like that. So what is the effect of this Kathopanishad or this play or whatever? I feel it makes death humanized. I don't mean with the death you are going to lose all the bereavement, all the sorrow, all those things that are associated with it. But still, you don't feel it is something that is terrifying. I don't know how to put it. I hope you understand. It is sort of, death is part of life. So it was beautifully explained by one of the greatest physicists of 20th century of all time, Niels Bohr. So Niels Bohr actually was one of the founders of quantum mechanics, and he was the first one who gave the model for the atom. Atom has nothing to do with Atma, okay? Atom, and then he was also a profound thinker, but I don't think he had anything to do with Upanishad or anything. On his own, he was a great thinker. And so he had this principle of complementarity, that in physics, there are things which if you want to describe, you have to describe through duality. For example, if you take an electron, it behaves both like a particle and also a wave. And if you take light, it behaves like a wave as well as a particle. So this duality is there. To explain this, he said complementarity. You must have both descriptions to make the whole. This is complementarity. And he was awarded something called the Order of the Elephant. That is the highest order you can get in the day for the Danes. It used to be given to the knights and so on, who were supposed to be very wise. Misnomer, mistaken notion. Not all knights were very wise, but of course Niels Bohr was probably one of the wisest people who was produced by that country. So when he was given that, he had to take a coat of arms like all other knights. You know what coat of arms he selected, which I have seen? Maybe Dr. Ramswamy has seen that. It is in Fromborg Castle outside Copenhagen. If any of you go there like a pilgrimage, the coat of arms of Niels Bohr, I forget the Latin inscription, it is the Chinese symbol yin and yang. This, all of you might have, I'm sure, have seen yin and yang, black and white. These two together make the complete one. So that is what his coat of arms is. That is the complete thing. So he said, see, he was fond of Buddhism. So he used to quote to people this beautiful story, he said, of Kisa Gautami, who goes to Buddha, says, my son is dead, can you bring him alive? You know the story. Buddha says, yes, I will do that if you can bring mustards from a home that has never seen death. She goes with great optimism asking for the mustards. Then everybody says, we have mustards, but my father died 20 years ago. And somebody says, my son died, and so on. So she is enlightened, and she comes and says, I now know both life and death are parts of the whole. So this is what Niels Bohr used to do this. So in a way, this Kathopanishad and I would say the play also for me. See, this talk is going to be very autobiographical. See, because you said what it means to me. So you had better bear with me to listen to my life story. So next thing that impressed me as a child, there were bookcases, and I was literally brought up inside bookcases, which was great. So there were books, philosophy books, literature books, so on and so forth. And I was really surprised to see some books like the first biography of Einstein by one Philip Frank. He was his colleague. And there was this book, Expanding Universe, by the great physicist Eddington. And so on and so on. They were all physics books. And also James Jeans, Sir James Jeans, he wrote one beautiful book called The Mysterious Universe, where he starts with the Plato's analogy of a caveman where there is fire behind and there are shadow play in the cave and they are chained so that they can see only the shadows. From that they have to construct what is happening behind. And he says that is how the universe is. For our perception, we see the shadows from which we will have to construct the universe. This had profound influence on me, although I did not understand anything. Now, it's turned out, if you read my father's book, Nachiketa, in the preface, he not only talks about Kathopanishad, he also talks about Brahman, he also talks about cosmology, cosmos, and he quotes James Jeans and Sir Oliver Lodge and the philosopher Henry Bergson. All three beautiful quotes, but I will just read one, namely Sir James Jeans. Think of the analogy between the universe, he says, and the Upanishad idea of self and Paramatma, or the universal spirit, Brahman. I quote from Sir James Jeans, the universe begins to look more like a great thought rather than a great machine. So it looks like a thought. The universe shows evidence of a designing and controlling power that has something in common with our individual mind. You see the analogy or the parallel, our mind, intellect is like Atman, and that controlling power, universal spirit is Brahman, and our own mind is part of that, and that is Advaita. The two are one and the same. That is what he didn't know Advaita, he didn't know. But you see the great minds run in the same channel, and that it appears in the preface of my father's book, and so he must have read all these books and taken the essence of that. So this is what happened. And now once again, this is as far as cosmos and all that goes. But the other thing that from time to time, one second. See, the sages used to carry kamandala, and there used to be udaka, right? And in the modern times, udaka has been transferred to vodka. But this is not vodka. This is udaka. From time to time, I get some cosmic energy from this. Sorry, can't share with you. The other thing that impressed me was, again with my father, he had completely, totally rejected all rituals. No ritual performed at home. He didn't even perform my upanishads. Good for me. Anyway, but then when I was about to get married, the priest, whose name was Vishweshwara Shastri, he came and said, look man, you have to have a Yajñopavita. There are n number of strands, and that it has to change to n+1 or n+2. Unless you do this, you are not going to get married. But I was already committed to my wife Saraswati. So I said, all right, we will have a short, very short ritual of Upanayana with no audience. And then when my wedding was over, the n strands were converted to n+2. That very progressive, enlightened priest came to me and said, Nodapa, ಈಗ ತೆಗೆದಾಕ್ಬಿಡು ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ. You remove Yajñopavita. Yes, sir, I said. I removed and gave it to him. I don't know what he did with it. So, no rituals, no shraddha, anything. So, you see, all round the houses would be performing pujas, homas, havanas, this, that. And I was wondering, nothing here. And he would simply explain in the simplest terms to the children, these things, thousands of years ago, had some meaning. Some Vatu was going to his Gurukula, then he would be initiated. But we don't do this, so there is not much meaning, why should we do that and that. But now I realize, probably he was already following the Upanishad ideas of actually rejecting the rituals. So I am quoting from this wonderful book I came across. All my knowledge comes from that. I have no hesitation in saying. By D.S. Sharma, Upanishads, an anthology. Who published it? Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, which was in 1989. I don't know if it has been reissued. I found it especially introduction magnificent. And it says, the seers and sages of Upanishads were apparently engaged in the mighty task of transforming a rather low type of sacrificial religion prevalent at the time into a great mystical religion, true for all time, without in any explicit manner breaking away from the tradition of the past. What glorious act can you think of? The rituals do not have any meaning probably. For example, I didn't fish out. Once again, reading D.S. Sharma, he tells that the Mundaka Upanishad says, these rituals never know the truth on account of their attachments. And therefore, when the fruit of their work is exhausted, they sink down and are miserable. Once again, Mundaka Upanishad compares sacrifices, rites and ceremonies to leaky boats, quite inadequate to cross over towards to the attainment of the ultimate, the Brahman. So he had rejected rituals, I have rejected. I don't do that or anything like that at all. And you see, the rituals are definitely for your own heavenly pleasures, either in this world or in the next one if it exists. We should always be optimistic. If we don't get something else here, maybe we will get it next. I don't have a Nobel Prize. Maybe in my next life I may get one. Who knows? So, but even mathematicians were, as perhaps you know, pressed into the service of rituals. For example, 500 BC or even earlier, there was this book called Sulva Sutra, the rules of the string. Don't think it is string theory. This is more practical. String theory has no connection with reality, but it's very mathematical and so on. These Sulva Sutras, so the idea was to construct altars of a canonical area. If it is square, no problem. But if the Yajaman, or the one who was doing the sacrifice, he wanted to kill off all his enemies, politicians or businessmen, as I said, so he will have to make an altar in the shape of a wheel, which he can hurl, and all the, metaphorically, spiritually, all the enemies will be gone. But you see, to make the square into a circle, you should know the value of pi. They knew it. Okay. But at the same time, there is other one, I will have to read it, I can't remember. Vakrapakshasyenachit, which is the form of a falcon. So the falcon, to build it, is broken into a number of rectangles, triangles, and equilateral triangles, and then orthogonal triangles. So these Apastamba and Baudayana, who wrote this book, knew Pythagorean theorem. If you read it, I have read it. It is in Raman Institute Library. Again and again and again, they are using Pythagorean theorem to do this. This was before Pythagoras. But let me say this. Please never say that our ancients knew everything. It is an insult to them. Because what we should give credit to them were their fantastic, lofty imagination, the profound thinking that went beyond all these things. It is also a disservice to the scientists who are doing research. So let us keep these things. They knew a lot of things, we know a lot, but there need not be any conflict on this. So the Sulva Sutra was done, but you know the rituals and sacrifices are done for worldly good. And Bernard Shaw said, if you ask God for favors when you pray, worship becomes contract. So you make a contract. God, let me earn 10 crores of black money, I will give you 1 lakh, 1%. Bribery. Okay, God doesn't want cash. Give him in kind, give him a golden throne or crown. So if God has problem with the income tax, put it in hundi. Then income tax won't know that God earned this much money. This is what is being happening. But before we consider God and spirituality and all that, I hope I won't exceed my time. You know, I had a mentor by Dr. H. Narasimhaya. Many of you probably know. He told me never ask the organizers how long you can speak. Apparently one speaker did that. And the organizer said, sir, with your erudition, with your standing, how can you place a limit? You speak as long as you want, but remember, but we will all be leaving after 45 minutes. No. So I won't ask you. So my brush with Upanishads happened, as he mentioned, I became the founder director of the planetarium, and in the very first program, which was called Our Son and His Family, we wanted to start with Upanishads. I don't think there is any planetarium program, forget about the West, they won't have, anywhere in India, any time that has Upanishads built into it. I take pride in that and pleasure. You don't have to clap. No, it's all right. So it starts with the Taittiriya Upanishad, I won't read it. But the other one, which is fantastic, is Ishavasya Upanishad, which all of you know. Hiranmayena Patrena Satyas. I don't have to repeat this, right? So it has different interpretations, I'm sure. Like lofty poetry, fantastic poetry, these lofty ideas, lofty ideals, they can also be interpreted in many ways. So our interpretation was this. So the narrator said, the face of truth is hidden by the golden orb of the sun. The attractive orb of thine, O sun, please remove, so that I may see the truth. So here what we interpreted was, when the sun is shining dazzlingly, you don't see the stars or the galaxies or the nebulae. So then we request, we pray to sun to go down so that there is darkness and you see the stars, the galaxies. That is the truth. So that is the golden orb is the sun and the truth is the universe. That was our interpretation. Many people liked. I hope you do too. So it's time for some cosmic energy. So please forgive me for this. Thank you, sir. I have a distinguished helper here. So the other thing, I have to go quickly. So I will, all of you, I don't know, all of you know these, you are experts. So the idea of Rita, which is both moral and cosmic order, this one I would like to see, as I said, great minds run in the same channel. The great German philosopher Immanuel Kant, he said this: two things fill the mind with ever-increasing wonder and awe. The more often and the more intensely the mind of thought is drawn to them. The starry heavens above me, and the moral law within me. So that is Rita. You have the order out there in the cosmos, in the starry night, and the moral law inside. And I understand that in the Vedic times, the Rita was sort of the guardians of Rita were the gods, especially Varuna. And not only that, Varuna punished those who strayed from this Rita and rewarded those who went along the Rita. But later on, during the Upanishad time, they wanted to change this, and man becomes the master of his own destiny, and the god Varuna was replaced, and it became actually the man's own responsibility to go according to this order. So I want to interject here the greatest, one of the two greatest scientists this world has seen, namely Albert Einstein. He also said he does not believe in a personal God who rewards and punishes. And he believed in something called cosmic religion, he described. And first of all, a telegram was sent by a rabbi when Einstein was emigrating to US. A telegram was sent, of all things, not email in those days. There was no email. And it said, "Do you believe in God?" That was the 4-word telegram. And Einstein obliged, sending another telegram in return, which said, "I believe in Spinoza's God, who reveals himself in the harmony of the universe." So it was not the personal God, but the God who revealed himself in the harmony of the universe. And then he went on to say that he had this cosmic religion, which once again invoked a God who expressed himself in the universe, in the order and this kind of thing. And he propounded on that. There is an article by Einstein, Religion and Science in New York Times, or in his opinions and ideas. So you can read there. But everybody did not take to this cosmic religion. As a matter of fact, the Bishop of New York made a comment, in Einstein's cosmic religion, S is redundant. In cosmic, if you remove S, what happens? Comic religion. That's what he said. But I think there was a lot to in that is there. And Einstein was very fond of invoking God. Once again, when he said God, it was in the highest form. That idea, nature, that kind of thing. He said, "Subtle is Lord, malicious he is not." And then he said, I have written one of this, God does not play dice when quantum mechanics came about probability. And then he said, "I want to know the mind of God. The rest is all details." And finally, for example, one more, I wonder whether God had any choice in creating the universe at all. Because once he had created the laws of science, laws of physics, he had no choice except to follow those laws and construct the universe. So when he was talking about God like this, Niels Bohr, his colleague, he told Einstein, "Look, Einstein, don't tell God what to do. He knows what to do." So this is how those great minds, these were the giants of intellect. And I feel if Einstein had known Upanishad, he would have really admired it, loved it. He did not read it. I'm absolutely certain about that. Because his own mind was also of the same caliber, I'm sure, as of those sages who thought those lofty thoughts. And as a matter of fact, there are 40,000 documents of Einstein, and I had combed through them and found 135 documents related to India, and nowhere does he say anything about Bhagavad Gita. Many of the quotations were attributed to Einstein. There are even quotations about astrology, pro-astrology, against astrology. Einstein never made a statement. Please let me make this humbly, with all humility, the submission. Einstein never said a word about Bhagavad Gita. Well, let us go on. Now, the whole process, I don't want to take much of your time, because all of you scholars have been talking about Brahman, Atman and so on, how the two are the same in Advaita. And once again I want to, before I mention this, Schrödinger, of all the great scientists who are the quantum mechanics, fathers of quantum mechanics, Schrödinger did read Vedanta. He has written a beautiful book, short book, called My View of Life, where one of the chapters is the Vedantic view he has. And when I submit my article, I will include that chapter so you can read it. I hope I will write it. I'm sure I will write it. So he says the problem is the multiple consciousness. When you view things, when you do experiments, it's one consciousness, no problem. But various consciousnesses, finding various things, plurality, that would be the difficult thing. And he says the only way to reconcile that is through Vedanta. Let me read the quotation. But it is quite easy to express the solution in words. Thus, the plurality that we perceive is only an appearance. It is not real. Vedantic philosophy, in which this is a fundamental dogma, has sought to clarify it by a number of analogies, one of the most attractive being the many-faceted crystal, which, while showing hundreds of little pictures of what is in reality a single existent object, does not really multiply that object. So the crystal reflects a number of reflections, giving rise to plurality, which is apparent, but the reality is only one thing. I am very sorry to interrupt. So can I take another 10-15 minutes?
He is the master, sir. I am only ornamental.
Yeah, he will say, take as long as you want, we will walk.
10 minutes is what? 10 minutes, sir.
So again he gives a very beautiful example of a person sitting on a bench and watching a beautiful scene of another snow-clad mountain. And he says, somebody else, 100 years ago, sitting on the same bench, would have done the same thing. 100 years from hence, somebody else will do this. Why do you say you are different from him? So, spatially, as that crystal analogy said, you are all the same, one self. And then temporally, in time, also you are all the same. This is one self. And he goes on to say, and all this self merged together will be Brahman. So it's a very beautiful essay you must read. And this Advaita philosophy once again has been portrayed as a play by my father, C.K. Venkatramaya, who wrote this play Ubhaya Bharati, which was published in 1961 and was beautifully translated by Professor S. Ramaswamy and published by the Gandhi Center of Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. And it is centered around Saraswati, who is the title Ubhaya Bharati, wife of Mandana Mishra, and it centers around Ubhaya Bharati, Saraswati, Mandana Mishra, and Shankaracharya. So in the last act, there is a beautiful portrayal of Shankara among these two and others, and Advaita is given in the form of a play. It's in English. I hope it's outside there, and you can take a look. Hopefully you can buy it. So I come to now, so all the other things can go on, and I don't have to go through all the things about Brahman, how the merging of river into Brahman has been described in Mundaka Upanishad and so on. So I come to the cosmos. Because there is a parallel about what a scientist does in cosmology, what he seeks in cosmology, and what is portrayed in the Upanishad or one seeks in the Upanishad. Because I feel everything is a process of seeking. Nothing is completely there. So, you have, for example, the unseen spirit everywhere in the cosmos. And the analogy of Upanishads is in Chandogya, where Uddalaka Aruni tells Shvetaketu that you take salt solution and dissolve. You don't see the salt, but that salt is everywhere. Like that, the spirit of the universe is everywhere. And one of the ultimate ideas may be to find that spirit. Well, is there an ultimate reality? I think the ultimate reality is the ultimate illusion. You may never find it, but you want to find it. And similarly, the other one is the origin of the universe. Once again, there is the Chandogya, there is Shvetaketu, and in the dance it was portrayed how you take the fruit of the tree, break it, break the seed, go into that, and there is nothing. So from the nothing, although it is nothing, it is everything. That is the spirit from which the cosmos originated, from which everything originated. But again, Mundaka says, the absolute as the origin of life cannot be blank. So in science, when we talk about vacuum, it's not really empty. Vacuum is seething with energy. There are so-called virtual particles that are created and immediately annihilated. This process goes on, and sometimes there is quantum fluctuations from which all the structures like galaxies and so on are seen to have been produced. There is a theory like that. Therefore, the vacuum could be the originator of the cosmos. So there is all these parallels. But once again, let us not say everything was known. Everything was known. What is there for us to do? You can't say everything is in Vedas. Then what you say is, we know quantum mechanics, we will go look for quantum mechanics there. That's not the process of research. That's not the process of seeking anything, even in Vedas. So let me conclude with this lofty, I go back not to Vedanta, to Veda. Of course, as Sharma says, Vedanta never separated itself from Veda. So let me read this creation hymn, Nasadiya Sukta, as translated by Max Muller, very poetic. This is paraphrased, and there was supposed to be a talk on Big Bang, as everybody knows that the universe started from this very hot trillions of degree temperature with an explosion called Big Bang. That is how it is supposed to have started. Once again, I want to read this. There is analogy here. It's not really Big Bang cosmology, but beautiful analogy. Let me read it. This is paraphrased, only a few lines, but you can find it many places. One place is Will Durant's Story of Civilization. Nor ought, nor not existed. The only one breathed breathless by itself. That is Brahman. Darkness there was, and all at first was veiled in gloom profound, an ocean without light. The germ that still lay covered in the husk burst forth one nature from the fervent heat. Who knows the secret? Who proclaimed it here? Whence the manifold creation sprang? He from whom all this creation came, whether his will created or mute, the most high seer that is in his highest heaven, he knows it. Perchance, even he knows not. You see, many people interpret this as skepticism. I don't think so. It is probably the loftiest line ever written. Why should Creator know the secret of his own creation? If Einstein knew the secret of his creation, of general relativity and cosmos that came out of it, research becomes a recipe. Everybody can follow. That's what we people do. But not at the height of creation, like the Upanishads seers or Einstein and so on. So the Creator does not, need not, should not know the secret of creation, but that should not deter humans from trying to find those secrets. Even if we do not find it, we keep on looking for it. Well, to sum up, what do Upanishads mean to me? So I didn't say nothing, I have said something. I do hope I have conveyed something of what it means to me, Upanishad. And that what it means to me is going back to my own childhood, discovering subconsciously how Upanishads affected me, and then again revisiting that during this conference. And it means, the Upanishad to me means a glimpse of greatness that is extolled by philosophers like Schopenhauer, who said, in the whole world, there is no study so beneficial and so elevating as that of Upanishads. It has been the solace of my life. It will be the solace of my death. And Upanishad also means to me a sense of wistful loss, because we see the decay, we see everywhere, as crass commercialism is completely taking over our cultural heritage. But it also means there is hope, because I see all the torchbearers here, the experts in Upanishads, who are keeping the fire burning, the light spreading, to whom I render my sincerest, heartfelt salutation. Thank you. Thank you very much.
On behalf of Bharati Vidya Bhavan and ISKCON, we